When I'm playing this game, I usually feel like this. But sometimes, I feel like this. Because this game pisses me off. I'm playing Call of Duty, and then every other player is cracked, so I decide to look into new shooters, and I decide to pick up hardcore military shooters. Hardcore milsims are pretty common on PC. It seems like whenever there's an indie game that's not a haunted children's establishment, it's a hardcore shooter. That's a bit of an understatement though. There's a lot of variety in indie games now, and I implore you to check out itch.io and try some out. But anyway, if you're tired of AAA franchises like Call of Duty or Battlefield, the hardcore shooter is probably your next best option if you're trying to stay in the realm of milsim at least. I feel like a lot of shooter fans are on the hardcore pipeline. I start off with something standard, more arcade-like experiences like Call of Duty. Then you move on to something a little more team-based and tactical like Battlefield. And then, once you get done with that, you're on to games like Squad or Tarkov. From there, you either decide that they're your favorite type of game, you like more casual experiences better, or you land somewhere in between. I'm playing around with a few of them now, and I was wondering if they're heading the right direction. Are they still any fun? Tarkov is probably the quintessential hardcore extraction shooter. While there are plenty of other similar games, it has one of the biggest player bases of any hardcore shooter. But whether you love it or hate it, the game is a grind. In the time it takes you to level your skills up, you could have gone to the real life gym and got jacked. The game demands you spend as much free time as possible on it, and it doesn't ever stop to hold your hand. And while you put as much time as you can into it, you'll also have to spend whatever time you have left browsing forums and Discord servers to learn everything you need to have fun. This can be really appealing to some, and I really appreciate the faith that it puts into the player base to make their own way, but it can also be quite a chore to play and begins to cross the line of being unfun. Some argue that's the point, but I feel that at the end of the day, a game should be fun. I find it fun, but it only happened after I was guided through it by somebody who already understood the game. I tried to think back to the last time I played a milsim without a steep learning curve, and it took me back. One of the first milsim type shooters I can remember playing is Delta Force 2. It's a shooter from 1999. It doesn't look like much today, but it actually has a lot going on for it for the time. Zero in your scope, big open maps for the missions, and a really interesting method for creating foliage. The people are all stickmen and the explosions look kinda odd, and even the trees explode, but the team behind it at Nova Logic laid down the foundation for a milsim PC game. I'd argue that the game is still fairly playable today. I mean, the graphics are definitely a far cry from this, but they have their retro charm. The gameplay is a lot clunkier and more static feeling than modern games, but it still feels like a blast to one-shot enemies with your sniper rifle from the mountains. The game was one of my absolute favorites as a kid, and for better or worse, it formed my taste for milsim FPSs.
Just put down your, shoot you get on there.
I definitely had rose-tinted glasses on, but the game is fun, and it feels vast and tactical, even without all the fancy systems that modern FPSs have. Leaning, checking mags, using lights and choosing lasers, different equipment, opening doors, eating and drinking, changing clothes, accounting for bullet drops, organizing your mounting inventory, your gun, managing your weight, recoil. It's a lot. And for people just trying to relax, it can really kill the mood. So are these games going in the right direction? No, while the gameplay loop can be taxing, it makes the reward so much better than any casual shooter. However, it's at the cost of a lot of your free time. That's a big ask for people who'd want to play your game. You're practically asking for their life in exchange for your game to be fun, so maybe they are heading the right direction as long as they make your time worth it. So what makes your time worth it? I wondered about what makes the fun moments in Tarkov feel so much more fun than the fun moments in any other game. And I feel like it's gotta be how hard you had to work for that victory. That doesn't necessarily translate into the game being harder. Technically, some matches of Call of Duty can be considered hard. but the joy is not near as high as a hard match of Tarkov. I think what it is that success doesn't feel guaranteed, and when success isn't guaranteed, it makes that success feel earned by your planning and preparation rather than being just a given. At the end of the day, I want to see more games that crank up difficulty and encourage teamwork and risk versus reward, while keeping the gameplay more accessible. Gameplay in Battlefield or Call of Duty feels close to what I would like, but they're not quite there, and the matches still feel meaningless. You just throw yourself into the pit, match after match, for those small dopamine rushes. A newer game I feel that handles what I like very well is Ready or Not. The game maintains a lot of hardcore aspects, and it can be very punishing, but you're not working to unlock anything, you're given all the tools you need from the get-go. But for whatever reason, I want to throw myself at a mission over and over until I finally beat it. And maybe that's what makes hardcore shooters worth your time. If you lose a match on Call of Duty or Battlefield, you still come out with unlocks and the satisfaction of how you did overall, looking at your KD, seeing how it stacks up against everybody else on your team, even if you lost. I want more games that hand me all the tools, and leave it up to me to earn my victory. A well-deserved victory.